Blake, I know you've got some pretty large efforts. Maybe expand on that a little bit. What's the, obviously we know, shaking a hand and seeing someone, it's a lot easier to have a conversation and establish trust and answer questions. With that, it takes more time, right? It's a more of a commitment, an investment in time and someone to be able to find that person, make that contact. What's a good, when you start a project and you've got, say, 40 or 50 sites, how many people do you think, landmen you need for that type of outreach effort?
Yeah, I think it just kind of depends on what part of the country we're looking at and how spread out they are. I think a team, 4 salt agents and a crew chief to kind of stay on and make sure everyone's going in the right direction and not overlapping on families and contacting the same people twice is a really good model. And to bring up something that Natalie said earlier, we want to get wins as quickly as possible, especially in these high competition areas. And, communicating with the landman and the developers on how can we structure these offers and think a little bit outside of the box. Because an area like Texas has been so hot since the IRA passed a couple of years ago that we're seeing, we're kind of in the second cycle, a lot of these option agreements. A lot of these folks have been burned by flippers that have thrown out outrageous numbers that have really upset the market. And it's really communicating with our landmen that, hey, we're dealing with developers that know what we're doing, that are actually going to build these projects. We might be coming in a little low, but if we can, incentivize with an option payment that's a little higher in the first year, so these people feel comfortable with us, it goes a really long way.
Yeah, it buys you some credibility. And that's, I guess with anything, it's education. It's the age-old thing.
100%.
When you're
Yeah,
trying
we're
to
dealing
convince.
we're dealing with surface here, and it's just people have such a much more intimate relationship with the land. So these discussions are going to go a little longer than you typically see in oil and gas, but that's just the name of the game.
Yeah, it's a new thing, right? I mean, that's the takeaway. And anytime you're trying to convince, and we say new now in these saturated markets, it's less new than before, but it's becoming more known by landowners, right? But if you're going into a new state that maybe is just starting to pick up, just starting to get active with battery storage, and you're a developer, you need to be factoring in some time, right? Pat, what would you foresee if you're going into a new area that maybe isn't as active? What do you need? Do you need a week or two? Should you expect a week or two of just kind of build up and time to contact people, time to kind of articulate what battery storage is and get people off center?
Yeah, I mean, it is, again, it
What's
goes back to having strong agents that are knowledgeable of, what are you trying to sell? What are you trying to sell to these folks? And again, it's acknowledging and recognizing the political divide that, based off of certain states. And I think you could just follow a map, whether the map's red or blue. How do they feel? What's the sentiment? What are you getting into? And I think we can judge that ahead of time. And it's communicating with the developer as well. What are their expectations, providing, company history, any details. It's just items that can get these folks more comfortable with you, know you as a friend more so than another telemarketer, another person handing out a flyer or putting something on your door.
to flip their?
Yeah. So it's really bridging that gap. And on our end, I think recognizing the political divide, and I don't want to get into politics by any means, but it's reality. I mean, whether you hear it on Fox News or you hear it on CNN, it's good or bad. And it's knowing the facts and presenting the facts and educating these landowners along with our agents as well. And that's a lot of what we do. It's a lot of our job.
I'll tell you one thing. BESS seems to be a lot easier for everybody involved than wind or solar when you get into the political conversations.
It is.
So, yeah.
I think a lot of it too boils down to footprint. It's
Yeah.
a small footprint. It's sizable. You're in oil and gas areas. You can very much so relate that footprint to pad site, whatever it may be. It's not the swath of we need all of your land. We need
processing facility or yeah.
And every landowner, I mean, no matter where they're at in the country, can relate to not having power. And that's really what these projects are for. And that's an easy way to get in the door and kind of speak their language. Like, I know solar projects are huge and they're tough to look at, but this will actually help you in your community. And if they have a buy-in to their community, they really relate to that.
Well, and not only that, but let's talk about a residential scale for a minute. There's a lot of companies right now that are doing battery energy storage on homes. you know, so people are opting out of buying generators and putting batteries, Tesla batteries, or even Generac makes batteries, and they're putting these on their home. There's a new company, Michael Dell's son, started in Austin called Base Energy, and they are putting battery packs on houses, connecting them back to the grid, and then using it as a distributed system, meaning that even though you have a residential battery on your house, you're not paying for the battery, you're paying for installation. And then you're signing up for like a monthly membership or whatever. And then your power from that battery is feeding back to the grid to support during outages in your little localized area. So people are getting a lot more educated about batteries, maybe, than they are, you know, large scale wind or solar or what have you. And I think that we're starting to experience a little bit of that in the ease of negotiating some of these deals with them. It's becoming more
And
palatable.
then as our population increases, as Teslas and EVs become way more common, as we've seen over the last 3-4 years. I mean, you see them everywhere. 4 years ago, really didn't, especially in Texas. We've got to find a way and, you know, what they preach, but educate these landowners. We've got to stabilize the grid. And it's continually a hot topic, and we keep talking about it. And this is the resolve. And I think you're going to continue to see a heavy push, obviously, as supply and demand follow one another.